you ever seen a child who smiles too quickly? A child who says, "I'm fine," before anyone even asks? Not the loud child who cries when they fall. Not the child who throws tantrums. But the quiet one, the easy one, the mature for their age one, the one who never causes problems. At first glance, this child seems strong, independent, emotionally stable. They don't complain. They don't demand attention. They don't make things difficult. But sometimes, that child isn't okay. Sometimes that child has simply learned how to pretend. Psychology calls this emotional masking. It's when a person hides their real feelings and shows the emotions that feel safer, more acceptable, or less risky. For adults, this might look like smiling at work when you're exhausted. But for a child, it's something deeper. It's not just politeness. It's survival. Because children are emotional scientists. They observe everything. They notice which emotions get comfort and which emotions get ignored. Imagine a little boy who cries when his father raises his voice. And instead of comfort, he hears, "Stop crying, be strong." Or a little girl who tries to explain her fears. But her parents are too busy, too stressed, too distracted. Over time, the child learns something important, something dangerous. My feelings don't make people come closer. They make people uncomfortable. And so slowly, the child stops showing them. This is called emotional suppression. And it doesn't happen in one moment. It happens in hundreds of tiny moments, small disappointments, small rejections, small lessons that teach the child it's safer to be quiet. The child begins to perform. They perform happiness. They perform strength. They perform being okay. But inside, something else is happening. Inside, they are confused. Inside, they are overwhelmed. Inside, they are carrying emotions they don't yet have the words to explain. And here's the paradox. The more they hide their pain, the more adults praise them. "You're so mature. You're so easy to handle. You're not like other kids." But maturity is not always strength. Sometimes maturity is adaptation to emotional loneliness. Sometimes maturity is what happens when a child realizes they have no choice. Psychologist Donald Winnicott called this the false self. It's the version of us we create to be accepted, the version that gets approval, the version that feels safe. The false self smiles. The false self says, "I'm okay," even when the true self is hurting. And here's the most heartbreaking part. Many of these children don't even realize they're pretending. It becomes automatic, natural, normal. They disconnect from their own emotions, not because they want to lie, but because they learned it was safer than telling the truth. Have you ever met someone who says, "I'm fine," in a voice that feels empty? Maybe you have. Maybe that someone was you, because children who pretend to be okay don't stop pretending when they grow up. They become adults who struggle to express their needs. Adults who feel guilty for having emotions. Adults who comfort everyone else but never ask for comfort themselves. They become experts at hiding, experts at surviving. But survival and healing are not the same thing. A child who pretends to be okay isn't strong because they don't feel pain. They're strong because they carry pain alone. And loneliness doesn't always look like isolation. Sometimes loneliness looks like a child sitting in a room full of people, smiling. The most confusing thing about a child who pretends to be okay is that no one notices, because they don't create problems. They don't cry loudly. They don't demand attention. They don't break things or act out. They disappear quietly, not physically, but emotionally. This is what psychologists call internalization. Instead of expressing pain outwardly, the child turns it inward. They bury it. They swallow it. They carry it silently, and the world rewards them for it. Teachers love them. Parents trust them. Relatives praise them. They're so calm. They're so understanding. They never complain. But what if that calmness isn't peace? What if it's resignation? You see, children are naturally expressive. They laugh loudly. They cry freely. They feel without filters. When a child stops expressing emotion, it doesn't always mean they've become stronger. Sometimes it means they've become careful. Careful not to be too much. Careful not to be a burden. Careful not to be rejected. Because deep down, every child asks one silent question. If I show my true feelings, Will I still be loved? And if the answer feels uncertain, the child adapts. This adaptation is brilliant. It protects them. It helps them survive emotionally unpredictable environments. But it comes with a cost. The child begins to lose connection with their authentic self. They stop asking themselves, "What do I feel?" Instead, they ask, "What should I feel?" They stop asking, "What do I need?" Instead, they ask, "What do others need from me?" This is the birth of people-pleasing, not as a personality trait, but as a coping mechanism. Because for that child, love became conditional. Love became something to earn, something to maintain through performance. They learned that being easy made them safe. But safety built on pretending is fragile, because emotions don't disappear when ignored. They go underground. They resurface later as anxiety, as emptiness, as a strange feeling of being disconnected from yourself. Many adults describe this as feeling numb, not sad, not happy, just empty. And the root of that emptiness often traces back to childhood, to the years when they stopped being themselves and started being who they thought they needed to be. And here is the quiet tragedy. The child didn't pretend because they were weak. They pretended because they were alone. Because children are not supposed to carry emotional burdens by themselves. They are supposed to be held, understood, reassured. When that doesn't happen, they become their own protector, their own comforter, their own emotional home. But a child should never have to be their own home. They deserve to feel safe enough to fall apart. They deserve to know that their emotions won't push people away. Because healing begins with one simple realization. You don't have to pretend to be okay to be loved. And maybe somewhere out there, there's still a part of you, quiet, patient, waiting, hoping that one day you'll stop pretending. Not because the pain never existed, but because you finally realized you were never meant to carry it alone.